time to pick a side. We don't have time to waste anymore.
On a sunny afternoon in October 2022, London's National Gallery buzzed with the quiet reverence of art enthusiasts. In room 43, Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers painting glowed under soft lighting. Its vibrant yellow petals are a testament to the genius work, roughly valued at a staggering £72 million. The tranquil scene held a sacred air, but it shattered in an instant as two young women, barely out of their teens, stepped forward towards the painting, their faces set with fierce determination. They clutched cans of Heinz tomato soup in their hands, and with a swift, shocking motion, they flung the orange liquid at the priceless masterpiece. The soup splattered across the protective glass, dribbling down the ornate frame. The crowd gasped, stunned in silence. Security guards rushed toward them, but the women weren't finished.
Security?
They pressed their hands to the wall beneath the painting, glue binding them in place, and shouted a question that reverberated far beyond the gallery. What is worth more, art or life?
What is worth more, art or life?
The words hung heavy, sparking a global debate. Was this vandalism, a reckless assault on cultural heritage, or a desperate plea for survival in a world suffocating under fossil fuels? The perpetrators, Phoebe Plummer, who is 21, and Anna Holland, who is 20, are young climate activists with Just Stop Oil, a radical group demanding an end to new fossil fuel projects.
Right now, people are dying.
In that fleeting moment, they ignite a global firestorm. Their act splashed across headlines from London to Tokyo. Plummer, with her piercing gaze and unyielding conviction, emerges as the face of a movement that is as divisive as it is urgent. To some, she's a hero, a modern-day suffragette sacrificing her freedom to save a burning planet. To others, she's a chaotic vandal, a privileged rebel defacing treasures for clout. But to Plummer and their clan of followers, this is no stunt. It's a cause worth going to jail for, a battle to preserve Earth's climate and the countless species teetering on the brink of extinction. Their movement, rooted in the stark reality of melting ice caps, raging wildfires, and a predicted 1 billion climate refugees by 2030, isn't just about saving trees or polar bears. It's about humanity's survival, a plea to halt the fossil fuel industry's grip on our future. The soup throwing is no random act either. It was a calculated shock, designed to pierce the apathy of a world distracted by politics and profits. The painting, unharmed behind its glass, represents beauty. The damaged frame, costing £10,000 to repair, symbolizes the collateral cost of waking a sleeping society. Plummer's words, captured on a video that quickly garnered 1.2 million views on X by that night, cut deep. Are you more concerned about the protection of a painting or the protection of our planet and people? The question reverberates, sparking debates in pubs, parliaments, and social media threads. Supporters call it creative iconoclasm, a bold stroke to expose the government's inaction to fossil fuel subsidies, with a fan on X also claiming that other companies' CEOs have done a lot worse and have not answered to their crimes. While their critics brand Plummer as a posh eco-zealot, mocking their upbringing in a £4 million Chelsea townhouse, their non-binary identity and queer activism draw vile online abuse, yet they stand firm, unapologetic, a lightning rod for the generation's rage and hope. This single act catapults Plummer into the global spotlight, but it's only the beginning. Over the past 3 years, they've faced a relentless gauntlet: 9 arrests, 211 days in prison, and a 27-month sentence that shook the climate movement. They've blocked London's M25 motorway, causing £4 million in economic disruption, sprayed orange paint on Heathrow Airport's departure boards, stranding travelers, and breached bail by delivering letters to MPs' homes, once comically targeting the wrong address. Each action screams one message: stop fossil fuels now. But at what cost? Her protests have inspired copycats from Berlin to Beijing, with soup and paint hitting artworks worldwide. Yet they've also alienated commuters, art lovers, and even some environmentalists who argue she's hurting the cause. Her privileged background, elite schooling at St. Mary's Ascot, a computer science stint in Manchester, fuels accusations of a trust fund rebel playing revolutionary. Today we unravel Phoebe Plummer's story, from the gilded streets of Chelsea to the cold walls of HMP Bronzefield, where she penned defiant letters to supporters. Released in February 2025, she faces new conspiracy charges, with sentencing looming in May. Is she a visionary, risking all for a planet on the brink? Or a nihilist, sowing chaos under the guise of justice? This is a dive into the life of this soup revolutionary, a woman who's turned soup cans into weapons and art galleries into their battlegrounds. Their story is a mirror. What do you see? A criminal? A hero? Or a warning of a world running out of time? What is the actual cost of their crusade? And how far is too far to save the Earth? We'll find out soon. To understand the woman who turned soup into a weapon, we must start at the beginning. In 2019, a UN climate report sends shockwaves through the world. Global warming could displace 1 billion people by 2050, flooding cities, scorching farmlands, and extinguishing species. For Phoebe Plummer, a then 18-year-old from London's affluent Chelsea, the report is a personal earthquake. Something strong enough to start an act of rebellion against the institutions and governments that are practically doing nothing about the climate change reports. Raised in a townhouse in a well-to-do area in Chelsea and educated at the elite school, Phoebe is steeped in privilege and should not be bothering about this. Yet the science is undeniable: the Earth is dying. So she radically adopts veganism, shuns air travel, and buys second-hand clothes.
Which is what it says online.
Which is untrue. But
do you really think that...
These are small acts in the grand scheme of things, but personally for Phoebe, they mark a shift. They're small but deliberate acts against the system fueling ecological ruin. Petitions and hashtags felt hollow. Plummer wanted to fight, not just sympathize. By 2020, Phoebe was studying computer science at the University of Manchester as a bright mind in a field of logic and code. But the climate crisis gnaws at them repeatedly. News of wildfires in Australia that destroyed an estimated 24.3 million hectares of forests, destroyed over 3,000 buildings, including 2,779 homes, and killed at least 34 people and billions of dollars in infrastructure damage. Floods in Bangladesh, also in the same period, affected over 275,000 people, and record heat in Siberia fueled a growing dread in them. Each disaster screamed urgency, yet governments appeared unconcerned, approving new oil fields while glaciers vanished. Almost as if to say all these crises and avoidable death did not matter to them. In spring 2022, the weight becomes unbearable. It becomes a mental health crisis, rooted in fears of global ecological collapse, and forces them to drop out of school. She later transfers to SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies in London, pursuing social anthropology, a discipline that probes human survival, which is fitting for a woman like her who is increasingly obsessed with saving the world. Traditional activism like marches, letters to MPs, and the likes feel futile, as they just keep getting ignored, arrested, and hated by the public. The world is burning, and Phoebe is ready to act drastically to bring everyone's attention to it. By July 2022, the UK records its hottest day ever, 40 degrees Celsius. London swelters, roads buckle, multiple fires erupt, leading to one of the busiest days for firefighters. For Plummer, who's now 20, it's a clarion call. She joins Just Stop Oil, which is a radical group demanding an immediate halt to new fossil fuel projects in the United Kingdom. Their strategy is simple: disrupt society to be heard. Within the first week, Plummer is arrested 3 times, twice for disabling petrol pumps at London filling stations, yanking hoses free to halt fuel flow, breaking the pump display and covering it with spray paint, as well as defacing the fuel station with Just Stop Oil phrases. While handcuffed, she remains defiant, her orange Just Stop Oil vest a badge of resolve. They embrace the arrest because Plummer sees the climate crisis as a war, and she sees herself as a soldier on the front lines fighting for her future and that of her children. Supporters of the movement cheer her courage and support the movement with Just Stop Oil's X account, getting over 10,000 new followers that month. Critics, on the other hand, scoff, calling her a privileged nuisance targeting the working-class drivers who are struggling already with the costs of living crisis all around the country. But the world is still torn apart, deciding if she is awakening the world or antagonizing it. One thing's clear, though: Plummer is no longer in the shadows. On October 14th, 2022, at the National Gallery, London, Room 43 is a sanctuary of art, where Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers hangs on a wall, a piece of art roughly valued at an estimated £72 million. At about 11 a.m., Phoebe Plummer and Anna Holland disrupt the calm. Wearing Just Stop Oil t-shirts, they pull out cans of Heinz tomato soup from their jackets, open them up, and hurl the contents of the can at the painting. The orange liquid splashes across the protective glass, dripping onto the ornate frame. Other members of the public gasp and scream in reaction to what just happened, but they're not done. They quickly move right below where the painting hung and glued their hands to the wall and shouted, "What is worth more, art or life? Is it worth more than food? Worth more than justice?" The crowd reels, some shouting in anger, others filming in shock. Security tries to remove them, but the glue means they're stuck there at least in the interim. The damage was done. Not to the painting, though, as it remained safe behind glass, but to the frame, costing around £10,000 to repair. The act was no whim. It is serious and absolute defiance to the system that is trying to kill them. Plummer and Holland chose the art to symbolize beauty endangered by climate collapse, targeting a cultural icon to mirror Earth's fragility. The video, when posted on X, exploded to 1.2 million views by nightfall, with multiple hashtags of them trending globally. The world is fractured. Some hailed it as creative iconoclasm, arguing it exposed UK fossil fuel subsidies that are costing taxpayers £80 billion annually, according to Oxfam. Dazed, a fashion magazine even went as far as making it into a cultural moment by creating their own art to immortalize the moment. To do this, they took a picture of Phoebe posing as Da Vinci's world-famous Mona Lisa with a can in her hand and "Stop Oil" written clearly on her chest, and did the same for Anna posing as the girl with the pearl necklace. Art historians, like those in the art newspaper, decried it as vandalism, warning that even protected paintings risked harm. Other critics branded Plummer as a posh eco-zealot, mocking her Chelsea upbringing and St. Mary's education. Her non-binary identity and queer activism did not help either, as it drew vicious online hate towards her, with ex-posts spewing slurs, one calling her a confused rich kid. But with all the hate that she was getting, Plummer, in a Just Stop Oil press release, was defiant, claiming that they're not here to make friends, but to force the government's hand to save lives. The controversy ignited a global movement. Within weeks, activists in Berlin flung mashed potatoes at Monet's haystacks. Amsterdam's Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring was soup too, and Paris's Mona Lisa face paint. Rome, Melbourne, The Hague, the galleries that were homes to some of the most valuable artworks in the world, now became protest stages for the Just Stop Oil movement. Critics argued that these actions alienated art lovers who might back green policies, with the majority calling the act counterproductive. The arrests led to bail conditions banning Plummer from being in and around galleries, yet she saw that as a fuel to keep going. In an interview with BBC, she said art is beautiful, but a dead planet has no museums, further adding that the demand for the government to ban new fossil fuel licenses is a no-brainer demand. The soup throwing cost Just Stop Oil £5,000 in legal fees and other logistics, but they claim to have raised an impressive £200,000 in donations from supporters. Was Plummer a visionary artist of dissent or a reckless vandal? The world couldn't agree, but it couldn't look away. By November 2023, Plummer faced a new adversary, the Public Order Act of 2023, a new law granting the police powers to curb disruptive protests, which they used to its full extent on Earl's Court Road, West London, when Phoebe joined a Just Stop Oil slow march, crawling at a snail's pace to snarl rush-hour traffic. Chanting "No New Oil," the activists aimed to highlight the UK's £1.7 billion in new oil subsidies. But they were met by some resistance by members of the general public who were trying to just go on with their lives. When the police got to the scene, they arrested Phoebe as well as a number of other participants. This was her 7th arrest. This time it was for interfering with national infrastructure. She was held on remand for 18 days and then faced trial at Highbury Magistrates Court. On November 16th, Judge Charlotte Welsh sentenced her to 6 months in jail, but she later admitted that the remand was a bit excessive. For this, Plummer served less time and was released by May 2024, but a May conviction for the same offense added a 3-month sentence to her time. The slow march controversy split the opinions of the public. Supporters decried the Public Order Act, noting it's been used to jail over 1,200 activists since 2022, and was now curbing free expression. The arrest itself cost tens of thousands of pounds in police resources, fueling debates about protest rights versus public order. A lot of working-class citizens whose taxes were being used in these processes again pointed to Plummer's privileged background, as members of the public claim that she's just a spoiled brat. By March 2024, Plummer's 8th arrest came after they delivered a letter to MP Emily Thornberry's home, urging her towards climate action, an action that breached bail conditions set from a prior 2023 arrest, leading to fresh charges of conspiracy to burgle and sending malicious communication. As if that was not enough, just days later, her 9th arrest followed in an attempt to deliver a letter to MP West Streeting, which she comically sent to the wrong address. According to the Standard, West Streeting laughed off the campaign and said, "I don't know which poor sod got your letter, but that isn't my house. If you want to write to me, you can do so quite easily via Parliament or my constituency office. Constituents can also visit my surgeries." Critics labeled the action as harassment, arguing MPs deserve privacy even though they're public servants. Supporters like Just Stop Oil called it direct democracy. But Plummer claims in a video recorded while she was arrested that she does not know why she was even being arrested, and that she was just walking and was stopped by the police when she was arrested. But one of the officers there explained that it was for her crimes on February 17th, where she and others conspired to commit burglary on a house, a PM's house even, in their efforts to make sure they're heard. These acts are considered by some as one of civic duty, while others say it's a reckless overreach. But the law saw only violations. In July 2024, relentless Plummer struck again, this time at Heathrow Airport's Terminal 5, where she and another older-looking activist sprayed orange paint on departure boards, protesting the aviation industry's 2.5% share of global carbon emissions, which is equivalent to 700 million tons of CO2 annually. Multiple flights were delayed. Hundreds of travelers were left stranded as the airport authorities tried to make sense of the situation and the best way to respond. Their arrest on July 31st was their 10th arrest, though only 9 are officially counted, as they faced charges of criminal damage and interfering with national infrastructure. They were again remanded to HMP Bronzefield in January 2025 as the trial ended in a hung jury, with a retrial set for May 2026. Despite bail, additional charges kept her imprisoned. The news headline that day screamed, "Eco-zealot grounds Britain." The Heathrow protest sparked fierce debate. Supporters argued aviation's unchecked growth demanded disruption. Critics, including a stranded family, called it cruel and uncalled for, with an estimated 5,000 passengers affected by this act of defiance. The protest cost over £200,000 in damages and delays. Plummer's privilege again drew scrutiny. Her Chelsea roots clashed with travelers' working-class struggles. The Public Order Act gains popularity within citizens, as many start calling for and supporting harsher penalties for such protests, as they totally inconvenience people just trying to go about their lives. The question on everyone's lips now is if Phoebe's actions were exposing a climate culprit or punishing innocent people. September 27, 2024 came quickly, and it was the day that public opposers of Phoebe's actions, as well as those of her compatriots, would finally see justice be served to them. And as expected, Southwark Crown Court delivered a blow. For the 2022 soup throwing, Plummer received a 2-year sentence for criminal damage, and the additional 3-month slow march sentence was added, totaling to a 27-month sentence. The judge, Christopher Hare, called her actions criminally idiotic, citing unnecessary risks of damaging the £72 million Van Gogh painting. As this news broke, a number of people who have been irked by the actions of these activists took to X to express their support for the actions that they equally condemned, with some saying it should have been a longer sentence, asking if they got as many as 10 years in prison. Others say they should have served that time cleaning up graffiti signs by the road, and another says that the news made their day, since prison is a rough place for posh people. But not everyone agreed with this judgment that was passed to Phoebe and Anna Holland, who got 20 months of her own. A global institution, Greenpeace, then wrote an open letter, signed by 150 art world figures, to Judge Hare defending her, and arguing that the protest was symbolic, also reiterating that no artwork was destroyed in the process. The letter from Liberate Tate and Greenpeace urged leniency for Just Stop Oil activists Phoebe Plummer and Anna Holland, who faced sentencing on September 27th for throwing soup at Van Gogh's sunflowers, signed by artists, art workers, and historians, It argues that the activist act was not vandalism, but creative iconoclasm, a recognized artistic tradition since the 1900s. Citing examples like the futurists, deidists, and modern artists such as Banksy, the letter contends that Plummer and Holland's protests, which caused no permanent damage due to the painting's protective glass, aligns with this tradition and enriches the artwork's social meaning. It compares their actions to suffragette iconoclasm and Liberate Tate's own protests against BP sponsorship. The letter criticized the court's defense of artistic purity and warned against custodial sentences, emphasizing that the 22-year-old's temporary act was a deliberate, socially conscious intervention, not an attack, and should be valued as art history. The suffragettes mentioned in the open letter were protesters similar to Phoebe and Anna, who also protested against a cause by going into art galleries and defacing artworks. The suffragettes, who were campaigning for the right to vote for women more than 100 years ago, were far more radical than the climate protesters today, smashing windows, bombing churches, and in one case, taking a knife to a painting of a nude Venus by the Spanish artist Diego Velázquez. The only difference being that the girls were about to face jail time for throwing tomato soup at a painting, while they, on the other hand, actually slashed and damaged the paintings to pass across a point that the world then wasn't listening to. While all that was going on, hours after the judgment was passed, 3 other Just Stop Oil activists souped up 2 more Van Gogh sunflower paintings in a defiant retort. The sentencing left the populace divided in opinions. Supporters decried a climate crackdown, claiming that the judgment was unnecessarily harsh for £10,000 in damage, especially when compared to the damage done to the environment from drilling for crude oil. Critics, on the other hand, cheered that justice was served for their numerous acts of defiance against the government and the obstruction of daily activities in the country by their numerous public protests, also hoping that this strict sentence would deter others from carrying out such protests and obstructions. But they would have been absolutely surprised to hear what happened bare hours after Phoebe and Anna embraced each other and blew kisses before being led out of the court to the penitentiary. Right after 2 of their most publicly recognized activist warriors were sentenced, the Just Stop Oil Foundation made a bold move to show and tell the world that they would not be silenced and that their message must be heard. They orchestrated another protest move very similar to the one that literally just got Phoebe and Anna a jail sentence. In an act to prove that they would not be silenced that easily, 3 other members of the Just Stop Oil organization, a man accompanied by 2 other women, walked into the National Gallery in London and made way for 2 other Van Gogh artworks on display that day, the Sunflowers 1888 and 1889. With cans of Heinz vegetable soup in hand, they walked in front of their respective target artworks, opened the cans, and poured the contents on the priceless artifacts, causing sudden uproars in the gallery from onlookers. The activist foundation just doubled down on their cause, proving that it's going to require more than fines, cell holdouts, and even jail time to deter them. The only thing done differently by these representatives of Just Stop Oil in the gallery this time is that they didn't bother to glue their hands to the wall after spilling the vegetable soup. They stood right there in front of the mad cluster of people and shouted out their message on the state of the earth and how fossil fuels are ruining the world that future generations are going to inherit. They kept at it until the security operatives within the gallery were alerted and came to the scene to remove them and hand them over to the police. By October 2024, just a few weeks after Phoebe and Anna were sentenced to do time in HMP Bronzefield, Phoebe remained unbowed. Her letters and recordings were published by Just Stop Oil, and they urged the resistance to continue in their pursuit of a better future, saying that the climate crisis doesn't pause, and neither can they.
This is the inevitable consequence of taking effective action against injustice.
She says that she has put away recording this kind of message because she felt like she had nothing relevant to say, until she was reminded by someone that most of the people that are thought to be their biggest inspiration spent most of their time in prison, as well as staring at walls. She also added that she's been doing well in prison and finding many moments of joy in the small and big things every day. She says that she feels deeply at peace in prison, even if she remains enraged at the number of people in prison with her then, serving different sentences for speaking up against the injustice being carried out, finishing the recording by saying that her cell is a place of revolutionary confinement. By January 2025, Plummer, Anna, and 14 other Just Stop Oil activists appealed their sentences, while they were backed by Just Stop Oil, Greenpeace, and Emmeline Pankhurst's great-granddaughter. The case that was brought forth argued that the 27-month term was disproportionate and quite harsh for the damage that was done during their acts of protest, which is itself a civil right. Phoebe Plummer was sentenced to 2 years and 2 months for the soup throwing, while Anna Holland received a prison sentence of 20 months. They're part of a group of 16 activists who are appealing against their sentences, which range from 15 months to 5 years in prison, where some were jailed for petty actions like stopping traffic, blocking an oil facility, and some for simply attending a Zoom call to discuss how they would disrupt traffic on the UK's M25 motorway. All 16 appellants were from the protest group Just Stop Oil, whose aim is to use nonviolent direct action to resist the destruction of communities as a result of climate breakdown, who also say that they do not consent to plans that will result in 3C of warming and mass death. In March 2025, the Court of Appeal rejected the challenge, citing the damage of cultural heritage and cultural assets as justification. This rejection marked a significant moment, highlighting the legal system's stance on climate activism and the personal cost Phoebe and Anna had to pay for their beliefs, meaning that every appellant was to return and serve the rest of their sentences. After 211 days in jail on February 7, 2025, Phoebe Plummer walked out free from HMP Bronzefield. Just a little while after, Anna Holland had initially been released as well. The Just Stop Oil activist group hailed her as a climate prisoner that was just liberated, and with the hashtag #FreePhoebe trending already on platforms like X and TikTok. As she walked out of the correctional facility, she was met by a small group of fellow activists, close friends, and possible relations with whom she shared embraces with and a lot of smiles. She didn't look any much different from what she looked like before going in, and it's led people to believe that what she said in a recording where she said that she felt deeply at peace while in there. Amidst all the smiles and laughter, not everyone is excited by her return to society, as some critics warned of more chaos, warning that she now has been in the midst of other serious criminals and probably had conversations with them, and we cannot know for sure where she was going with her activism next. She could up the ante and start doing a lot more than trying to damage priceless paintings and deface public properties with orange paint.
Childish, petty, pathetic vandalism. Am I wrong? Does anyone want to defend these people?
But contrary to the fears of her critics and opposers of her methods, Phoebe has managed to stay away from public disruptions and protests since she was released from prison. Her only interaction with the law since regaining her freedom was on April 11, 2025, when she was recalled to the stand alongside 21-year-old Guido Weezer to answer for charges of conspiracy on trial at the Southwark Crown Court, in front of Judge Cole in relation to their role in the actions that caused gridlock on the M25 between the 7th and 10th of November 2022. Both defendants were arrested on the 10th of November 2022 after a vehicle they were traveling in was stopped by police. She was found guilty of conspiracy for the 2022 M25 blockade. Phoebe was already granted bail until the 15th of May, when they would be sentenced alongside David Mann, who already pleaded guilty to the charges before the trial. During the trial, the judge ruled out all legal defenses that would have allowed the defendants to argue that they were exercising their right to protest in the face of the grave threat to humanity posed by the climate crisis. Even though the Crown prosecution had previously accepted as agreed facts the findings of the 2020 Net Zero Interim Report, which stated climate change is an existential threat to humanity. Without global action to limit greenhouse gas emissions, the climate will change catastrophically with almost unimaginable consequences for societies across the world. In her closing speech after the trial, Phoebe Plummer, according to Just Stop Oil, is quoted saying, "In the body-worn footage of my arrest, one of the things I say is that scientists predict there soon will be 1 billion climate refugees globally. The latest peer-reviewed science predicts that we'll reach that by 2030. 1 billion is a number so large that I find it difficult to comprehend. Those people are not a number or a statistic. They are real people, with names and faces, real people who haven't caused this crisis, who aren't to blame, but who are going to lose their homes, their safety, and possibly their lives. I agreed to climate gantry in November 2022 because I thought it might have an impact that could reduce this suffering." Plummer's legacy is a paradox. Her 9 arrests and 211 days in prison cost the British government an estimated £500,000 in public resources, according to combined estimates, but also raised about £1 million for her activist foundation, Just Stop Oil. She also inspired global protests, similar to hers yet alienated by her own people and is seen as a nuisance. Her Chelsea privilege clashed with her radicalism, losing her brother's bond. Supporters of her cause, like Monbiot, see a suffragette, while critics, on the other hand, see a nihilist. The Public Order Act and the jailing of 1,200 activists frames her as a test case. The question remains, is she a visionary or a villain? Phoebe Plummer's crusade cost £10,000 in the art frame damage, £4 million in M25 disruptions, and untold public patience. 9 arrests, 211 days in prison, and a global movement mark her path. Critics call her a privileged chaos agent. Supporters see a hero for a dying planet. The Public Order Act, jailing 1,200 activists, looms large. As Plummer awaits sentencing, one question burns. How far is too far to save the Earth? Her story is a mirror. What do you see? A criminal? A hero? Or a warning of a world on the brink?